is here. The Way to Break Free with your host, Angela Pedigo, will light a flame within you. Host Angela Pedigo is an author, speaker, and certified life recovery, grief, and joy restoration coach. Angela uses her own life experiences to help you navigate and guide you to success. She also has developed tools that incorporate her faith and her drive to overcome any obstacle in life. So please welcome the host of The Way to Break Free, Angela Pedigo.
Welcome, everybody, to The Way to Break Free. I'm your host, Angie Pedigo. I am so excited today. You get to meet my sweet little mama, Miss Donna Buntin. She is just an amazing person. She has got such a beautiful heart, just her ministry, everything that she does. We're going to dive into all that today. Many of you that know me know that you have heard me say plenty of times, this woman has a direct dial line to God Almighty, and she does. So we're just going to dive into a little bit about her. I want you to know her and what God does in her life. So, Mom, she has a ministry, let me tell you guys. She's been doing for years. How long have you been going into the nursing homes?
Oh, mercy, probably 8 years.
8 years or so? It's been longer than that.
Well, it probably has.
Yeah. Probably 10 or 12 years. Anyway, she makes these rounds of nursing home visits each week. How many do you go to?
6.
Okay. She goes to 6 different ones each week, and I'm going to let her tell us a little bit about that. Tell me, explain to everybody, what you do. What's your routine?
Okay. Usually Wednesday is my nursing home day. I get out and go. I get 30 subscriptions to our local paper. And I pick up other little magazines and pamphlets, and one of the ladies at church brings me some, and a lot of the places I take snacks. Of course, they look forward to the snacks too. But just to be with them, I learn so much, and it's such a blessing. They just need to be loved and cared about, and let them know that you love them. I enjoy it. It's just, I feel good every time I come back home. I'm just blessed. That's all it is.
Now, are these people that you visit, are they always people that you know, or some of them people you don't know? How do you make connection with them when you go in?
Well, a lot of them I do know from years past, and then a lot of them are new. But all you have to do is go in with a smile on your face and a smile in your heart, and they know it every time. And we get to talking. We get them started about their childhood and how they grew up. And if you have a question you need to ask them, ask it. They love that. We have got to love and care about them no matter what the situation or, how they are. Just know that you care about them. That's the main thing.
Tell us a story. What's something that's really memorable to you, like a moment that you've had in there with one of them that you've been visiting?
Well, there's one lady. Young lady. She's had a stroke. I knew her daughter, and she can't talk. She can make a noise, but she can't talk. But when I go in, she just brightens up. I give her paper. And she's from our hometown, and she likes to see what's going on. And she'll just take my hand, and she'll just kiss my hand and my arm and just thank me and hold it to her heart. And I have some that like special treats. I try to take that to them. I've got one that's just hung up on peanut butter and cracker. So I have to take her that every time. And then I have one in this area, a gentleman, and he loves sardines. So I buy cans of sardines for him, and he's thrilled to death. Of course, the techs get after him because he smells up the place. But anyway, it's a blessing. And so many times, when we go in, we tell them, say, we will pray for you. Don't go off and leave that person without praying for them right now. because they want your prayers, and they just
Mhm.
covet those prayers.
Mhm.
So do that right while you're there. And
Sometimes that's the best gift you can give anybody is to pray for them.
that is.
Like we try to, sometimes when you can't do something for somebody, but you can pray for them, it's the greatest gift you
That's
can
right.
give. Yeah.
That's right. And they appreciate it so much.
So let's start back into what got you into doing this. Like what drew your heart to that?
Well, my mom in 2011 and 12, she was beginning to get a little dementia. But anyway, she couldn't stay at home by herself anymore, and I had to work. And so we put her in the nursing home for a while. And I would go up there usually at least 5 times a week to see about her and do for her, and got so acquainted with the many people there. And a lot of them, I mean, this was back in 11 and 12, and they're still there, and they don't forget you. And I just fell in love with them. They're just precious, precious people. So I just wanted to keep working and doing for them.
And so then from there, that was like at one nursing home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what drove you to like pick up the extra ones?
Well, I can't remember. I just thought about how many people needed someone to visit, and the places are close to me, and I can get out and do that. And sometimes here lately I've come up on some that they'll be having a card game out in the foyer at this assisted living. So I sit and watch them and learn from them. They encourage each other. It's just some of the people there just have to reach out, the residents, and it's fun. It's just fun.
You took such excellent care of her, even going up there. When she had care, you would still go up there and care for her. And that wasn't close by. Like you would drive 20, 25 minutes, to get to her each time. So as mom, she's taught us a lot about what it looks like to be a caregiver. And throughout my life, that's all she's done is take care of everybody, take care of people. And caregiving is hard. Caregiving is it's a hard job. It's so very rewarding. And this is like a blessing. Like,
Yes.
I'll never forget when we were going to you and Aletha and I were going to the beach one time, and you and I think she might have been working or asleep in the back, and I was driving, and I'd ask you, what do you feel like your spiritual gifts are? And you said ministry, and that's what you do. You minister to people's needs. So let's go back before her even. One of the things that I saw you do was just take wonderful care of our dad, and he battled chronic lymphatic leukemia, and he was just terribly sick. And the toll that it was taking on you was just about as hard as it was taking on him, it seemed like. And just watching how well you took care of him, like, I mean, it was amazing. But tell us a little bit about that experience and like what it's like from a caregiver's side, because I think there's a lot of people who are caring for loved ones that are battling health conditions of all kinds, and that's hard.
It is. Right now in our church, we've got several couples that are having to take care of each other. And you have to pray for them every day that God will give them strength and energy to hold up and be able to care for that loved one. Back several years ago, I had breast cancer twice, and my husband was good to me. He was retired, and he would help take care of me. And then when he came down with leukemia and lymphoma, I had to be the caregiver then. And there was lots of things that I had to do. So many changes to his body that had to have medical help. And the doctor told him one time that he wanted to know who had been taking care of him, and he told him that I had, and he said, well, she's kept you out of the hospital. So it was, he took care of me and I took care of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you a funny little story. One day, Robert, with this leukemia and lymphoma, big water blisters would come up and they would have to be taken care of. Well, I would put on my gloves and paper towels. It looked like a hospital room when I did all this. Well, my little grandson Eli was there, and we had bought him a little doctor kit a long time ago when he was little. And so I decided to let he put on the gloves. He wanted to be help too. And we had Robert laying across the bed, and I was working on these places, and it was so funny. He looked and he watched, and he says, "Ma, I'm going up to the other end. Pa needs a hug." But anyway, we had good times and we had sad times, and we knew that when it got close to the end, we were sitting on the couch one time, and we were talking about knowing that he couldn't get any better, and that that his life, he could be gone anytime. And I said, "We talk about you being gone." I said, "I could go before you do." And he said, "Well, I better hurry up." And but anyway, I took care of my mom there in the nursing home. I'd leave work every afternoon and go straight up there and see about her and take care of her. And she'd usually get after me. She'd see me coming around the corner, and she said, "What are you doing up here? You need to be home with Robert." And I said, "Well, I want to come and see about you." And we just had good times. You've got to take care of them. I think it says somewhere in the Bible where, when we get older, we turn back to children. And of course, our children have to take care of us. And that's true. That's true.
Yeah. A lot of people don't have that family to surround them with, whether it's logistically, they live states away, or, whether
Right,
they're,
right.
They're close by, or, you had a lot going on at that time. You were working, and you were taking care of her at the nursing home, and you were coming home and taking care of him. And like now, years later, looking back, it's easier to cherish the memories, the good things, the fun times, and that's what you hold on to. As you work through the processes and you work through the grief, you learn to hold on to the good memories. So let's go back to like in the moment, like when it was hard, like when you get tired. I mean, were there some days you were just worn out, and like what would give you the motivation to keep going?
Well, God did that. Many years ago, we grew up on a farm, and we all had to work hard. We didn't know what vacation was in the summertime. When it was school break, we went to the fields and worked. And I remember years later, it was in berry time, and my mom was in the strawberries trying to take care of them. My dad was in the hospital in another town. My brother was in the hospital at home. A tractor had turned over him, and I had to leave my oldest daughter with her, and then start making the rounds to get to see about each one of them. Well, I was going down the road to Nashville, and it just seemed like there was just so much on me, and I just asked God, I don't know how much more I can handle. I need you to be with me, and He was. He took care of me through all of that, and he, when we just turn it over to God, He's going to make a way, and He'll give us the strength and energy to get through our situations. And that's what I prayed when I had breast cancer. I just asked Him for strength and courage to get through it, that I wasn't any better than anyone else to have cancer, but I needed His touch, and He gave me that touch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was another long journey for you too, was the
Yes,
cancer, not once, but twice.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, 2-time breast cancer survivor. So that's just such a huge blessing, a miracle in itself, the timing of how everything's just all played out, in your life. So well, you just touched on about like your dad and your brother, like you've literally been caregiving your entire life. So we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back from the break, we'll dive into a little bit more of that, like, just wind the clock back a little bit further. So come back after the break and we'll continue on this journey.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back from the break. We are talking with my sweet little mama, Miss Donna. And we're talking about caregiving today. She has been a caregiver her whole life. She actually has a ministry now of caregiving for other people. And so, we're going to talk about that. Let's go back to early days. What's the earliest age you were when you recall having to take care of somebody?
Oh, now that's hard.
Dialing back in the memories.
Well, I guess I sort of saw after my brother Danny and my sister Doris. There was the three of us.
Now, you were the oldest.
I was the oldest, and I guess we sort of took care of each other. My brother, I used to get tickled at him. Here he was, grown, and I'd have to go with him to the doctor because he was scared to death of shots. He was afraid he'd pass out. And
now I know where I get it.
And we were just young, growing up at home, and everybody had responsibilities, and we just saw after each other. My daddy had strokes, and some major ones, and that was a trying time for us. He had to go to the nursing home, and I went to work part-time so I could help my mom take care of him, and we would take turns. And then when he was at home, I'd go over there and help her. We'd get him up and try to get him up in the bed and get him to the bathroom and back in the bed. And it's hard. I never regretted anything. I was thankful that I could be a help. But, I'm sure being a caregiver is hard on some people. They struggle. They're tied down. Even though they want to do everything they can to take care of someone, it's hard. I'm sure it plays on your nerves and your time, and there's some that you can't leave them for a minute. You have to be with them all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that's trying. And
You have to juggle a lot of plates.
Yes, you do.
Feel like a lot of spinning plates at one time. You can't drop any.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And especially if you don't have family that live around you that can help, it makes a difference. We've always been close. I've had you and Aletha, and you all would help, and it's we just did what we had to do.
Yeah, yeah. This is, that's one of the benefits, which, I know down here in the South too, and all over, the world, but like, we really gravitate. Like, I don't know how people make it, especially if they don't have a lot of family around them without their church family and stuff, because, or like your small groups or your communities, because people become your family and they kind of fill in the gaps sometimes, when family can't step up or, they just can't for whatever reason. You had mentioned that he had a lot of strokes. How old? Because I was so little, I don't remember that. But I mean, I do remember him having the strokes. But how old were you when he started going downhill?
Oh, that's too far back. I can't remember.
You were in your 30s, I'm sure.
Yeah, in the 30s.
Yeah.
What was so hard? My daddy was a hard worker, and it hurts so bad, and I see this in the nursing home, when they can no longer care for themselves and they have to have someone else to care for them. It's sort of like it's, I don't know the word for that. I don't want to say degrading, but it just takes away from them that they can't do for themselves anymore. And so many of them in the nursing homes, they want to be home so bad, and they'll never be able to go back. They need that care, that a lot of it's specialized care that they have to have that you can't get at home. And, all we can do is encourage them and love on them. And this morning on the way here, I was listening to a pastor talk about that. And he said, don't forsake the people in the nursing homes. They need you. And I thought, yes, they really do. They really do. But it's not just in the nursing homes. It's many other places too.
You were talking about how hard it is, on them because they want to do good. They want to be able to do for themselves and take care of themselves. But in the moment when you, as the caregiver, have all the plates spinning and all that stuff, is that what was on your mind, or were in the moment? Were you more like just trying to survive the moment for yourself, having to like spin the plates? Because sometimes I think people who are having to care for other people, like the burden can be so heavy that we forget the effect of the person actually dealing with that actually has the issue themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want to be that way, and they feel the burden. They feel the burden it is on other people around them. But in the moment, like, how would you shift from like not focusing on yourself so much and focusing more on them and how this must be affecting them? Like, did that just come natural to you, or were you the opposite way? Were you like, this is hard for me, and then afterwards, looking back, you could see, well, that had to be hard on him too.
Well, I didn't think about it being hard on me. I did what I had to do. But even today, myself, I don't want to be a burden on you and Aletha.
I know you say that all the time, and you're not, but I see how much you worry about it.
But the people that I meet on these visits, they're the same way. They will ask me to do things that they won't ask their family because they feel like they're a burden to them. And I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. I enjoy doing whatever I can to help that person at that time. And, there's times that I'd be taking care of my daddy. You'll have to excuse me.
That's what we're here for. That's what this show is about.
But I'd see the hurt in his eyes. And I know he was so thankful that I could take care of him. And he couldn't see real good. And I know he couldn't see the tears that I was shedding at that time. But I just thank the good Lord that I could do what I did. And I know everybody does. Well, most everybody does that. We're blessed in so many ways every day. And I'm just thankful that God gives me strength and keeps me going. And, I want to serve wherever I can. And I have a wonderful church family. And, when these trying times come and you have a church family, they really pitch in to help with so many things. And I'm thankful. God blesses me every day in the little things, the big things. And sometimes I wonder why. I don't think I'm worthy, but evidently he does.
You very much are. If anybody
Evidently he
is.
thinks I'm worthy of something. We used to talk about spiritual gifts, and I thought, I don't have a gift. I don't know what it would be. I always told him I'm not a leader, I'm a follower. But anyway, I just try to ask him to use me wherever he needs me.
Yep. You do. And he uses her all kinds of places. You had shared a story with me one time. Tell us about, we were still talking about your dad. Tell us about when you were, when your mom was pregnant with you.
Oh, back in those days, we were all just alike. Everybody was poor people, but we were still blessed. We didn't know the difference from anybody else because we were all just alike. And when my mom was expecting me, back then there was tuberculosis, TB. And I remember my mom, she passed away before I ever knew her, but anyway, I knew she had tuberculosis. And then my mom had TB when she was expecting me. So when they went to the doctor wanted to abort me. But my dad said, no, I'll take her home and take care of her. And evidently he did, because I'm here today.
Did you have any effects of that as a child?
No, never did. Of course, back then, the county would have a big health bus that would come through, and I would go and have the skin test or whatever to make sure. But no, I never had anything at all. I was blessed.
That's a miracle in itself.
Yes, it is. It is.
So the way you grew up, like what they did for a living, which like everybody had to learn to pitch in and help. Being sharecroppers basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was that like?
Well, it was fun. I see it now as fun. I wouldn't change my raising for anything in the world. It was a blessing. Like I say, when we got out of school, we all went to the field. We had strawberries and we had tobacco, and we raised all these crops for another person. And we'd have good times. We have hard times, but we grew up in a little community that had a lot of older people, and we learned respect for those people. And that's just the way it was. And that's what I do today. I really respect the older people. They're so wise and so knowledgeable, a whole lot more than we could ever be. And they teach us the common sense. But anyway, we worked hard. We had to work hard. And a lot of times we didn't have real fancy meals and things like that. And what we had for lunch was what we had for supper. But anyway, our dad taught us good measure. He taught us to be fair in everything we did and to work hard. We learned to work hard. And today that makes me so much more thankful for what I have. And, I don't want great riches. I don't want anything fancy. As long as I have my little home and God will bless me enough to let me take care of it, I am so thankful, so thankful. And I hope we don't, so many things going on today and so many different sicknesses, and I hope one day that He'll just let me go in my sleep, take me on to heaven.
That's one of the things, like, that's the beauty of, I think in the Bible refers back to a lot of, the harvest and reaping what you sow. And, we got to scatter seeds, and somebody comes along and waters the seeds. And, we see the harvest to fruition, like compares a lot of things to about farming basically, and raising crops and those sort of things. A lot of the parables Jesus would share. And, I think there's so many lessons to be taught in that arena. Work in the fields. There's so many lessons to be taught in that. Spiritual lessons, wisdom, a lot of things, teamwork, helping one another out, having to battle storms, and bad weather when the crops are bad.
Right.
And all of that goes back into life. You can take the highs, the lows, the goods, the bads, the whole cycle of, crops, and you can learn life from that. So sometimes I wonder, you can just see it. There's a generational gap there, where people who had to do everything by hand because you didn't have the big equipment and all that stuff, you had to really be more people intensive than you were equipment intensive. And so, there was a lot of life lessons in that. And so you're right. People who are older have so much wisdom because they kind of lived in a different era, a different generation. And so we're going to hold on that thought for a minute. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back in just a moment.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back from the break. We're going to shift gears a little bit. We've been talking about caregiving this first half of the show. And so now we're going to talk about ministry. And one of the sweetest little things that she does, I don't know if you can see them or not, but there's this little cross, this little cedar. They're made with cedar, these little crosses. And she tell us what you do with these, how they come about, what the purpose they serve, all that.
Well, I had one day I was watching a religious program, and I noticed that they had put a little cross in each one of the chairs. And I thought about that for a long time. Well, there was a man in our church, and he could whittle, he could make anything. And so I asked him one time about it, if he could make a little cross. Well, he started making them, and he would let me have them in bunches, and I would give them out wherever I felt like there was a need. And one day it was at our strawberry festival, and they had the Sumner County Choir was singing. And
now the Strawberry Festival, is it a parade? Like, what's that day like?
It's the annual parade in Portland. It's like the home of the Strawberry Belt.
Which is kind of funny because that's what you were raised doing, was growing strawberries. Y'all were the strawberry growers.
Yes, we did. But back in our day, our growing up days, the Strawberry Festival parade was just something to be there to see. They had so many bands that came from so many places. And the one that always just thrilled me to death was it came, I think it was Fort Campbell or Fort Knox, the Army Marching Band. Oh. And they were out of this world. They just made you feel so good. And but anyway, this choir was singing, and they sang a song. And it stirred my heart so much that I went and grabbed up a handful of these little crosses. And they had bleachers there, and people were sitting on them. So I go around giving everybody a little cross. But anyway, and it seemed like they appreciated it so much. But my heart was stirred. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But I even went back and got more and put them in my pockets and came back and gave them out. And
somebody probably needed that right then.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And I just felt moved to do that. I thought, they'll think I'm crazy, but that's okay. So
you didn't regret it, did you?
No, I didn't regret it.
Most of the time when you just follow those little knocks, you never regret it. That's afterwards. Right. You get such a blessing.
And I still give them out. He still makes them for me. He's at home. He's has so much trouble that he can't walk and come back to church. Strong Christian man. We think so much of him and his wife. But anyway, I still give them out. I bring them to you to take out to your people.
Yes.
And, we just don't want to lose that message of the cross.
Right. That's something we don't hear enough about. Like, and it's just needed
It's
so
right.
much.
Is.
We don't need to ever forget the message of the cross.
It is.
There was one, I remember when these things, I don't know if it's when you first started doing this, but you had a good moment in the jail with somebody one time, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Aletha, my other daughter, was working in the jail. She had a ministry there, and it was Christmas time. And we were there. She was working. We brought in toys from our church and different places, to give to the children of prisoners. Well, I was standing over there and just watching. This young man, I guess, had just been released. And he came out, and he was putting on his shirt, coat and shirt and his shoes. And so he came out, and he went and stood at the door. Mm-hmm. And there was a taller man standing beside of him. And I think I believe he was a minister maybe. And he was sort of talking to this young man. And I thought, that young man needs one of those crosses. So I go out in the car, and I get the crosses, and I come back, and I put this in that young man's hand. Well, I told him, I said, I have something I want to give you. So I put it in his hand and closed his hand, and I gave him a hug and told him, I said, I'll be praying for you just like I pray for my grandsons. And he hugged me. He cried, he hugged me, and I didn't expect that. But anyway, I thought, God, maybe you were just leading me in that direction.
Yeah.
And I stay on my prayer list. He's on my prayer list.
Aww.
The young man that at the jail that I got to talk to, and I still pray for him every day.
Yeah.
And I pray that he'll never be back in that place again. And we just try to reach out. God will give us an opportunity somewhere, somehow, some way.
Yeah.
And we have to take advantage of that. And I've learned also in the night, I wake up maybe 2:30, 3:30 or something like that, and there's somebody on my mind. And I have learned that when they're brought to mind, you need to act then. You start praying. There's a need.
Yep.
And you start praying. You don't know what it is, but God does. But you just pray. And then the more I pray, the more names he brings to me.
Yes.
And I think he wakes me up just for that reason, for me to start praying for somebody. But it's 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. But that's wonderful. That's a wonderful time that I have with God. And
I think there's something special just about that time of the morning because it's so calm and peaceful and like everything just seems so still. But it's funny you say that because he'll wake me up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning many times. And I've talked to so many other people, believers that'll say, oh, he does that to you. He does it to me too. Like, I don't know. It's just something special. I think there's a whole lot of prayers going up at that hour in the morning.
I know, I do too. And I think a lot of times, especially our missionaries come to mind. And, they go to countries. God calls them to go to these different countries. And they have to, a lot of times they may come back to the States and visit the churches, and they can't talk specifically about where they're at. But we need to hold them up in prayer every day because I'm sure they struggle with having to bring God's word to these people.
Yeah, and at the risk of their own lives.
Right,
many times
That's
being
it.
taken.
That's it. Yes.
There are people, this kind of been on my heart lately this past week. It seems like, we talked about it on the radio Monday morning, and then, it's just been coming up a lot. But, some people will spend, you referred to spiritual gifts earlier. We've kind of touched on that a little bit. And I know that Romans chapter 12, that tells us about the gifts of God. Things that we're born with, there's 7 of them. You can go read them in Romans chapter 12. But you can look at those gifts, and it's kind of like what we're naturally gifted at, like what comes kind of natural to us. And you can use those gifts for good or bad. That's that free will moment, that free will where we can choose, am I going to go right or am I going to go left, with those things. God wants to see if we'll use them, because we love him, not because we're made to. That's not love. If somebody forces you to do something, and he doesn't force his will on us, but he equips us for what the plans he's got for us. And then, in Ephesians chapter 4, Jesus left spiritual gifts here, 5 gifts that are about getting the word about the cross out, about these little crosses, about what Jesus did for us and taking our sin debt. And, all we got to do is believe, with our whole heart and pray through that. And then the Holy Spirit comes along in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, I believe it is. And there's 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit. And if you look at those, they're like your toolbox. It's like, okay, here's what I've equipped you with naturally. Now here's your job, your assignment, and here's the toolbox to go do it with. And I think it's Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. It says something, I think, I may be wrong. You have to look that up. But, that we're all called to do good works. And there are people that will spend lifetimes trying to find their purpose. They'll praying, well, God, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? I wish you would just show me. If you'd show me what my purpose is, I could do it. And we may not hear back. A lot of times people feel stuck because they don't hear anything back, but it's right there in black and white. To do good works. We were created to do good works. And we all have the same calling on us. As believers, we have the same calling to go share about the cross and do good works. And how does that look? Sometimes I think we get hung up on the how, like, well, where am I supposed to do that at? Or maybe somebody's being drawn overseas to be a missionary, or maybe somebody's, and they're kind of like, I'm just not real comfortable with that. Like, that's a whole upheaval of my entire life. And then maybe it's, well, okay, God, but I really want it to be this. Like, I want it to look like this way. I want it to be on this platform or, whatever. And we're holding out for something we want that may not be what his plan is for you, but his plan's always greater. And I don't care, we have to do first things first, right? So in Luke 16, I think it is, he says, he who is faithful in a very little is faithful in much. And he who is unrighteous in a little is unrighteous in much. But we have to do good right where we're at first. Like, God is a God of stewardship. And we have to do good works first in our own little areas if we're, wanting him to grow and to fulfill us even more. And every single one of us, every single day, has the opportunity to get up and do good. Find somewhere to do good. And going further than that, like, let's stretch that out a little bit further when he says, not just to your family and your friends, because even non-believers do that. It's easy to love the people that love you. It's easy to lend to the people that, and expect something back in return, but it's the strangers. It's the people you don't know. It's the thing that is not convenient. It's the places you normally maybe wouldn't go. Where can you go to do something good for somebody? Maybe you see somebody on a street corner and maybe they're struggling. What could you have the ability to make an impact in their life today in that moment? Absolutely. Do we keep driving by or do we stop? And as something as little as having to get over the nerves of taking these little crosses, and they, at the risk of them thinking thinking I'm crazy, but you did it. You were rewarded so richly for that. And it seems so little, but let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about that for just a minute.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. We are talking with my sweet little mama, Miss Donna, and we were kind of laughing at the break. I was telling her, tell me other things that you've done that I don't know about. And she said, well, you're not supposed to let your light shine before men. So I'm like, she's done so much good that I'm sure there's so much we don't know about that we'll probably hear about one day. But I'm going to say this for her. Like, when I say she's got a direct dial line to God Almighty, she does. Like, I can remember when I used to, in my other career, my former career, when I used to work at the bank, I was a loan officer, and, there was plenty of times where, we had to get some loans. I needed some more loans to come in, and I would call her and be like, pipeline's drying up, and I've got to go find some more. And she'd say, all right. I knew that meant she was going to be praying. And then she'd call me, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month later, and she'd be saying, how's work going? And I'd say, I got so many loans. I cannot keep up. I just need to catch my breath. I'm so grateful for them, but I just need to catch my breath. And she'd say, all right. I don't know, she's going to ask God to hold up for just a minute. And every time it was like everything happened that way. So I'll tell my girls in the jail a lot of times that we go in and work with, I talk about her a lot because she is just such a source of strength for our whole family, the whole community. community actually. And I'll tell them about, her prayers and what they have meant to me. And so when there's a big moment, court decisions are coming up, they're fighting for their kids, and trying to do everything they can to hold on to their children and get their lives established, back on track. And they'll say, will you please call your little mama and tell her to pray for me? And she does. She puts them on her list. She prays so intensely for them. And their faith is grown because they know that somebody was praying for them. And, watching that whole thing, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit because there are people in this world that nobody's praying for. Nobody is praying for them at all. That nobody even knows their need, knows their burden. But for somebody who could be a complete stranger to them, who's willing to stand in the gap and go before the throne of grace on their behalf and plead their cause and ask for God to move that mountain, you wouldn't believe what your prayers do to increase their faith, because he hears. And just like he was answering for me, when you pray for me, he is answering for them. I had a one that is very dear to my heart, and she was facing like another long sentence, and she had been serving a lot of time, and she was going to have to go finish that sentence out, and it was kind of up in the air. And I can't remember if it was 3 years, 8 years that she thought she would have to do. And she said, please call your mama and tell her. And she was doing so well. She completed so many courses in there. She was ready to get her life back on track and just spend her time with her son again. And you started praying, and I will never forget her face. Like, she called, and her faith was just like it had just blown up, because she only had to go for 60 more days. 30 to 60 days was it. And she was like, I know that God heard that. So, yeah, I mean, not only do you minister to people's needs, but you are a prayer warrior. And sometimes people, I don't know, I think sometimes we shortchange the blessings that we get because the assignments that God puts on our hearts and lives, the calling that he puts on us, we don't embrace because we're looking for something else, or we're chasing somebody else's spiritual gifts. And we're so fixated on what somebody else is doing that we forfeit our own. Like, how have you been able to embrace your gifts? Like, what keeps you motivated?
Well, there's a lot of times that I'd say God might put someone on my heart, and I'd say, well, I'm so tired, I don't feel like going out today. And then I change my mind and I get up and go, and I've gotten such a blessing because I did go. And then there's times that maybe somebody comes to mind and you don't go right then, but they have passed away in the meantime. And that makes me feel so guilty. So I've learned, when God puts something on your heart, you do it right then. Don't you put it off. Yeah. Because there might come a time when you won't be able to do that. It'll be too late.
Have you ever noticed too, this is the way it is with me, if my flesh is fighting, like I don't really want to go do this, or I'm too tired, or whatever else, that's when I need to go the most, because there's going to be the biggest blessing. Right. It's like the more myself is fighting, I'm about to forfeit a really huge blessing. So I've paid attention to that. Right. If I'm feeling like, I don't want to, boy, I better get up and go right then. And, that's kind of like in recovery. We always talk about the minute you think you don't need the meeting is when you need the meeting. Like, that's when you need it the most. So yeah. Looking back and seeing what you might have missed.
I know. I think sometimes it just seems like here lately we hear of so many young people taking their lives. Yes. And that really bothers me. And I think, Lord, how could we have reached out to that person? If there had just been someone that could have seen what was going on, that could have helped save that person's life. Yeah. And, we just have to be on guard. We have to be on watch. Just pay attention. Just pay attention.
Yeah. Our surroundings. And, a lot of times people are struggling with things that we can't see on the outside. You look at people and you think they seem like they got it all together. Everything's, going fine in their world as far as you know. But if it wasn't for those little nudges, those little heart nudges, if we went by just the outward appearance of what we see happening in that person's life, it's easy for us to think, oh yeah, well, they're okay. They've got that. But if we pay attention to the nudges are there for a reason, because God sees what we can't. Mm-hmm. He hears their cries, what we can't. We don't hear when they're home alone and they're crying out for help and they just need somebody to come and just pray with them. And following the nudges is trusting that the Holy Spirit's got it all figured out. He's already ahead of you. He's got that. That's like a divine appointment. You need to go right then because there's something that person needs that maybe you can't see.
And we can't, it's easy to judge people and the way they do things, but we don't really know what's going on deep inside their heart, what they've been through. Maybe it's their childhood or what's going on in the present. But we just have to look beyond and pray that God's will would be done in that person's life.
Yeah, you're so right. I don't think anybody wakes up and chooses, we weren't born to want a terrible life or a hardships or things like that. It's just like nobody chooses addiction. Nobody chooses mental health issues, but it just happens. And, sometimes we just need somebody standing in the gap for that. So I admire you, Mom. I thank you so much for being the mom you've been and the servant you've been. She is just the greatest example. So I cannot say shout out enough to her. Hope you guys can just be faith as you have listened to her today. And let's just go do good. Let's go all find somewhere to do good. I want to thank you for watching today. I thank Bold Brief TV for the show. Like and subscribe from wherever you're watching today. Like and subscribe, and then you'll get notifications each week of when we go live, and you can hear an array of different stories of faith and hope and how Jesus is the way to overcome anything. He's the way to break free. It doesn't matter what it is. Hope you all have a blessed week this week and look forward to seeing you next week.
And I leave you with Isaiah 41:10.
Okay. Thank you.
This has been The Way to Break Free with your host, Angela Pedigo. The one thing Angela attributes her personal victories to is her relationship with God and her deep faith. Tune in each week and hear stories and testimonies of people in personal and professional trenches and how they overcome them with their own faith in God. The Way to Break Free has something for everyone, everywhere. Right here, Wednesdays, noon Eastern on the Bold Brave